BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Biden has asked the US Congress for $33 billion in extra support for Ukraine. Speaking at the White House, Mr. Biden called for the funding to be approved as quickly as possible. He said the package was designed to defend Ukraine rather than attack Russia. Mr. Biden said he'd also put forward proposals to make it easier to seize the assets of sanctioned Russian oligarchs. The BBC's Anthony Zerker is in Washington.
The idea is to try to put as much economic pain on Russia as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to hit their economy. And maybe if you hit these oligarchs, if you take away their money, if you reduce their business opportunities, they might start to put pressure on the Russian government. They might start to use whatever connections they have to Vladimir Putin to encourage some sort of a peaceful resolution. It's just one of the ways that the United States can increase the pain to make a long-term military conflict in Ukraine less acceptable to Russia.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has criticised his own organisation's Security Council for failing to prevent or end the war in Ukraine. Speaking in Kiev, Mr. Guterres acknowledged this was a source of great disappointment, frustration and anger. He said the UN was doing all it could to try to ensure the evacuation of civilians trapped in the besieged city of Mariupol.
Mariupol is a crisis within a crisis. Thousands of civilians need life-saving assistance. Many are elderly, in need of medical care, or have limited mobility. They need an escape route out of the apocalypse.
President Volodymyr Zelensky said he'd urged Mr. Guterres to help prevent what he called the deportation of Ukrainian civilians to Russia. Ukrainian officials say 2 Russian missiles have struck a central district of Kiev. The city's mayor said information about casualties was being clarified. One of Germany's biggest energy companies, Uniper, says it's preparing to meet Russia's demand that its gas is paid for in rubles, despite the European Union urging members and companies to refuse to comply. The firm says it will make payments into an account that will convert euros into rubles. Here's our business correspondent, Theo Leggett.
Poland and Bulgaria have opted not to follow Moscow's instructions and have had their supplies cut as a result. Now it appears that energy firms in Italy and Austria, as well as Germany, are preparing to do as Moscow demands. Some experts believe Russia has acted in this way specifically to cause dissent between EU countries over the sanctions regime. Revenue from gas sales helped the Russian state energy company Gazprom make a $29 billion profit last year and has been propping up the country's economy at a time when sanctions have been having a significant impact.
BBC News. The World Health Organization has expressed concern about a rise in cases of COVID and other communicable diseases in Africa. It blamed the upsurge and a doubling of infections in South Africa. The WHO also said Africa was facing an explosion of preventable diseases due to delays in vaccinating children. The UN Human Rights Committee has found that the prosecution of Brazil's former president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, on corruption charges 6 years ago violated his right to an impartial trial. The left-wing leader filed a complaint about how he was brought to trial. The UN panel found that the lead judge and prosecutors had shown bias. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has arrived in Saudi Arabia in the latest move to mend relations between the two countries. Mr. Erdogan hasn't visited the kingdom since the murder by Saudi agents of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. Sebastian Usher reports.
President Erdogan has said that he hopes to initiate a new era with Saudi Arabia based on mutual trust and respect. The murder of Jamal Khashoggi led to a direct showdown with the Saudis. Until a few weeks ago, a Turkish court was holding a trial of Saudi suspects in absentia, but that has now been halted, clearing the way for Mr. Erdogan's visit, which is part of a major recalibration of his regional alliances in a bid to attract Saudi and Gulf investment into Turkey's ailing economy.
A court in Sarajevo has sentenced a retired Bosnian Muslim Forces general to 8 years in jail for war crimes committed by foreign jihadists during the conflict 3 decades ago. Sakib Mahmoudin was found guilty of failing to prevent the execution of dozens of Bosnian Serb prisoners of war by a unit of fighters from the Middle East under his chain of command. BBC News.